Welcome to this Compliance Tuesday by ProductIP, the company that is very serious about product compliance. I was making this presentation and I thought from all the presentations that I've made, this topic is really, well, I probably would say like boring. It's not just boring, but it's humongous, basically. You will see my slides. It was very, very difficult to make this into a very attractive presentation because the reasoning behind why we need this eco-design for sustainable products, and a little bit related to that right to repair, is that the situation is quite there. There's a reason why we need this legislation, because apparently we are not able to fix it all by ourselves without it and without guidance. So I warn you ahead, no pink elephant slides. It's a tough one, this one. It will be recorded, so you can look it up again later. And of course, you will get the slides. And at the end, I would like you to participate with me in 4 or 5 questions in Mentimeter to get some feedback on the topic. I doubt that this is the last session on this, especially because a lot of clarity will come actually in the next months and years ahead. So what is happening and what is the reasoning behind this and other legislations that are coming from Brussels? It's actually the shift into the fact that the consumer society needs to be rearranged and become more circular. And I'm part of the consumer society as well. And if we could reuse a little bit more of what we are using, that would be great. If we don't need to throw away products that are perfectly fine but can repair them at a decent cost, that would be great. But apparently it's not easy for retail and trade. So if you look at this one and other legislations, you need to step away from just this document or other documents. It's actually a complete new phase of regulatory thinking. We are moving from compliance that is not just based on an article number. We are moving to compliance that has actually a batch-based rhythm. It's about the energy that's used in this product. And it's about the CO2 that's coming from the production of this batch. It's about the substances that are in this batch. Traceability needs to improve. But for you dealing with product compliance, when nothing would change and you would have to move from article-based rhythm to order-based rhythm, that's already significant. If you now need to consider that it just doesn't stop the moment you put it on the market, but that you actually need to think about what will happen during the lifetime of the product. There's not a linear sell and forget, but circular. That means that you need to anticipate the usage of the product, but also the repair of the product. And that's quite significant. When you also need to be transparent about that, that's completely mind shifting for retail and trade. So if you look at it from that point of view, the eco-design for sustainable products regulation, it's not really just a new piece of law. It's a transition. It's a new rhythm. You need to stop thinking in products only, and you need to think in systems and flow and data. That's completely different. You could also say we need to stop talking purchasing. We need to start thinking procurement. That has impact on the way you do business, basically. It's not entirely new. I'm not blaming anyone, but we could see it coming because we're busy since 2005 with eco-design for energy-using products, and 2009 for eco-design for energy-related products, EUP and ERP. Focus was energy reduction. So already there, legislation was needed to encourage us to say why you keep the coffee machine on when nobody's making coffee, why you don't switch it off. Why are these power supplies using so much energy? when there's nothing connected. So if the industry don't regulate it, then the regulators regulate it. But now we are moving away from energy efficiency and moving to circularity. But has this brought us anything actually? Well, the result for you and me as consumers, and probably we'll disagree because energy prices went up anyway, it has nothing really to do with it. We would have, the savings are still significant, 120 billion euro in 2020 and 145 million tons of CO2. So it's all measurable, it's all tangible. And the recognition of energy labels, of course, is very, very large. Apparently, that 7% of EU consumers still doesn't know what is an energy label. I think that says more about those 7% than about the energy label. So we got to move away from energy to circularity. This is about what materials actually have been used, what has been the waste during production, what is the waste when we really cannot repair and reuse the product, can we actually make it reusable, and what data do we need to help us drive sales decisions by consumers, like an energy label. I would like to pay a little bit more if it uses less energy, or do I like to pay a little bit more if it's better to repair? And in order to make those decisions as a consumer, you need to have access to information, and this information needs to come from you and your supply chain partners. And it's determined by the design initially of the product and the way you build it together, because that makes it also possible to take it apart, and also what materials have been used. So the Eco Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, it's already a lot of words, it's adopted, it's entered into force, and we will see the first effects in 2026. It's a regulation, not a directive. Regulation means it's applicable in all member states. They will just convert it to national legislation. As said, it's not new, it's replacing eco-design. That means also that for the additional product groups, I'll come to that later, that are already covered in the eco-design, it will just carry on with what they need to do. Now comes a little bit the difficult part. Not everything is already clear and defined, and they will define that more via delegated acts. Delegated acts is something like a subpart of this regulation, and will be defined in the coming months, years to come. So this means not just like a standard and a substandard. This means really reading what's in those delegated acts, and those delegated acts have different concepts, because one will be about textiles, another one will be about furniture, one will be about tires, another will be on mattresses, etc. The scope of this eco-design for sustainable product regulation is actually very broad. Right? It doesn't exclude a lot, but it has scopes that they think they will determine in the first phase. And so it's actually like a framework. So what happens to the existing eco-design products? Well, there were 16 products in the eco-design and energy label, and the working plan are now part of this first cycle. They just carry on. Yeah, washing machines, dishwasher, fridges, freezers, displays, chargers, etc. And the interesting thing is, the complex thing is, it's not always defined by the ESPR. Sometimes it's defined by other legislation. So what kind of time scale are we looking at? For those initial products that are carry on and the new ones, this is roughly the timeline until 2030. Right? So it makes sense that we have those that were already in the previous legislation, like dishwashers, wash machines, displays, that we have these actually in front. We just continue with what we are been working on. Yeah. What about the right to repair? And I'll come back to the other topic, because this is also on the agenda, because it makes sense, if you have eco-design and you have circularity, that's why I put right to repair on this. This is actually separate directive, so it's not even regulation, it's a directive. The reason why it's a directive, it's because if it's a regulation, it will be one-on-one transferred to law in all the member states. But there's a lot of consumer rights already embedded in legislation in all the member states. So they made it a directive. The goals are clear, but each country can use its own legislation in order to reach the goals. It's separately, but it's fully aligned with ESPR. So one of the reasons why perhaps it is separately is because it has conflicts with national legislation on consumer rights, and therefore they wanted to make it into a directive. It's adopted, we'll see rollout 2026. What it actually means is if you want to repair a product, you need to provide information and you need to have parts. So you have manuals, part list, instructions, even perhaps how to reset software, etc., etc. You need to have tools, diagnostic tools. And one of the reasons that industries are afraid of this, they say, yeah, but okay, what if I need to give away all kind of trade secrets? Well, certified repair centers are already in place. So companies that can repair products can get themselves certified according to certain standards. And this means that they are obliged to keep information that is shared with them very secret. Yeah. And of course, it is certain companies can say, I want my own dedicated repair centers. But nevertheless, the cost of repair is also a driving factor of this legislation. It doesn't make sense if repair costs more than a new product, right? So if you look at right to repair, what are you allowed or expected to do? Well, one of the questions is, what is about spare parts? How long do I need in general have these available? It depends obviously on product groups because, certain product groups lifetime expectation is maybe 3 to 5 years and others are very long. So it needs to be aligned with expected life cycles of products. But up to 10 years is already required under the current eco-design rules, for example, for a washing machine. Yeah. So these are typically things that will be determined in those delegated acts, yeah, or in separate notifications. Can we use 3D printing, or do we need to have parts on stock? Well, you can have 3D printed parts, but you need to meet original safety and performance requirements, not only for the 3D printed parts, but also for the other spare parts, which makes sense because if you repair the original product with not original parts and they reduce the safety and performance of the product, the original product, then of course you are in breach of compliance principles. Yeah. Does cost matter? Yeah. You can already look at what France is doing for certain products. Availability of parts, you score points for that. Price of spare parts relative to product price, you score points for that. And how do you need complex tools or not? And how easy is it to repair? You score points of that. So there's different topics for which you will be able to score points, and that will result in a kind of a repair index. Compare it with the energy label. What are then critical parts? Any part, a spare part? Well, this is already for the products under the eco design already defined. You can see motors, pumps, thermostats, doors, hinges, triggers, parts that are probably the easiest ones to fail because they are used a lot during the normal use of the product. Yeah. So there's a list of essential parts, but you can do more if you want. And what about the smartphones and the tablets and the computers? Because these are the ones that are often in the press. Yeah, do we need to replace batteries, etc.? There are already national initiatives in France and Germany, and yes, they are in legislation. Now is a new word: EU Circular Electronics Initiatives. It's like a framework above the ESPR, and it's not legislation, but the industries are talking with Brussels. Mobile phones and tablets are explicitly listed in the working plan, and the right to repair covers them where applicable. So again, spare parts to be available, repair documentation, software, diagnostic software, and from another part of legislation, in the future, batteries must be user replaceable. So you see there's an overlap. That's what I said in the beginning. It's not just this framework. The fact that there's a circular economy where we're heading for is embedded in each and every new part of legislation. The part that substances, for example, are becoming more critical and informing consumers about substances. It was in the last session about toys. Yeah. It's not just listing substances of very high concern over 0.1% in a skip database. No, consumers have a right to know. So you will see elements appearing in all these new legislations. What can you do? Well, if you have data on actually uses of products, what are your critical spare parts? And can consumers repair them themselves, or do they have to be repaired by certified repair centers? And if so, depending, of course, if it's a certified repair center or a consumer, you need to have a different kind of guidance on repair steps and what kind of tools to be used. Yeah? That's a lot of work. And that also means that shifting products during seasons, especially in these categories, will create a lot of work not only now, but will also create a promise to those users in a number of years. If you have every year a couple of promotional actions on different washing machines under your brand, you need to take care of the repairability of those washing machines a few years later, again and again and again. And this changes also the way retail and trade and branding will going to be behaving in that context. Do you really always want to be the brand owner in terms of brand and address on the product, or are you going to move for certain product categories perhaps to a licensing model where another European entity and their address is supporting your brand? Because perhaps in general they can maintain these kind of requirements for all kind of products in a certain product category, regardless of what name is printed on it. And so this has profound impact on what you are selling now, because you will be confronted with that a couple of years later, also as a brand owner. So I made an overview of some of these things that you will see in different kind of legislation, because you would expect that the USB-C connector actually would be part of this legislation, but it came from Radio Equipment Directive. Brussels has many ways to achieve goals. Battery replacement is in the EU battery regulation. The right to repair, it's a separate one, and some of the aspects will be mentioned in delegated acts. Then you have product design requirements coming from the ESPR. Then, I'll come to that later, digital product passport. Obviously, it's not just mentioned in this, it was mentioned in the toys legislation, it's mentioned. It's like playing with Lego and Duplo blocks. It's everywhere, and everywhere it comes back again and again. Software and security, coordinated on a different level. Yeah. Multiple overlapping initiatives landing on your product. And remember, product, that's key. Because if you look at what we are doing, this is an average year, and we're processing a lot of documents, a lot of initiatives, what's coming from Brussels, and we are looking at all those delegated acts and standard changing. And ultimo, it needs to end up in something that you understand. That's why at ProductIP we start with product, yeah, because eventually that's where all the regulations show up. Yeah? It's good to understand that there's a layering in all kind of legislation, but it's much more important to understand the higher goals, because otherwise you cannot drive towards those goals. Now, people that just start driving cars, they are afraid to look further away and try to correct the steering action on short distances. It's much better driving when you are able to have a point on the horizon. Well, still far away. But tomorrow is here today in France. This principle of the repairability index is actually the one that we will have everywhere. Dots and I's will change a little bit, but it will be something like this. As said, different points to be scored. A uniform icon set could be this one, could be a different one, but probably it's like this. It allows transparent communication across all the EU member states to consumers. It allows the European Union and the member states to explain to consumers what this actually means, and it will take time. Yeah. So it's not just about my right to have a product and to have value of the product over time. It's actually a pressure test for you. It's not only product related, but also the way you collaborate. It's really has a lot of impact. Oh, so what about the new product groups? Well, there's 4 already identified: textile and apparel, furniture and mattresses, tires, and intermediate materials. And the reasons why, it's obvious. Textile and apparel, it's high on the list because it's a very rapid economy. We buy a lot and we don't wear it a lot, and then we throw it away. And there's not a very good recycling mechanism at this moment. Same for furniture and mattresses. It's very hard to disassemble, so it's a low reuse. So you can see Brussels picks their battles. Yeah, if we can change the world around these product categories, it's not low-hanging fruit, but we make massive impact. Because on the electronics, in all fairness, we are not doing such a bad job already. Yeah, so it's about, can I move somewhere from 20 to 80%? And you can say, yeah, the 80% is still inefficient, but to move from 20 to 80 is a big move. Or do we want to move from 90 to 92%? Yeah. So we'll still continue with all those products that were in the eco design, but we focus more on the new product groups. Timeline wise, iron and steel 2026, textiles and tires 2027. So it's a little bit different. It takes time. Yeah, it takes time for the industry to come up with ideas. These times are not just determined by the legislative team in Brussels. Obviously, they are having consult sessions with industries. But there was not a lot of negotiation space as to how far they can extend it, because goals for 2030 in general have been made. Again, like with repair index, France is leading the way. The canary in the compliance mine. I could have used a picture here for this one. Fast fashion is definitely unsold. Fast fashion means waste. And this is one of the low-hanging fruits that people focus on. It will not be allowed to turn unsold fashion into waste. France already requires disclosure and bans destruction of unsold textiles. It will take a little bit of time because we don't really know exactly the volumes and who is responsible for what. So what we start with is extended producer responsibility programs around apparel. Like with paper, if we identify who actually is contributing to the volumes of waste, then also we know how to stop it. So it's a matter of collecting data, mapping the industries, and then forcing those industries to change. But this will be definitely the first step. Just make it illegal to turn unsold fashion from stores into waste. That means buying in a different way, producing in a different way. There won't be scarcity for you and me. We still can buy our jeans and our t-shirts and our polos and jackets. Yeah. Because the basic principle is, if something that is not even sold is turned into waste, that's not just efficient. Yeah. Then you're definitely creating the problem. If you want to have an idea on what this actually means in reality, I'm not the one that is opening your eyes. Do it yourself. Just Google Atacama Desert and you will find a number of articles and videos where you say, that's not good. Well, I wouldn't say that's not good. You could say that can be done better. That would be better. Yeah. Smarter as well. It's just too easy way out to turn it into waste because there's apparently some countries on this world say, yeah, no problem, bring it here. We'll bury it here and we burn it here. Well, that cannot be the way. That smoke is in the same air somewhere where you and I also breathe, right? Um, in in many discussions, not just in the road ahead of this presentation, but in general, people are asking us, also a digital product passport, when will this apply? When will this come? It's not the right question, you know, because it will become mandatory and it will come in time for all kind of products. So my question is, why you want to wait until legislation forces you if the biggest change actually is not Brussels and it's not products. It's about your own system, the way you deal with buying and selling, how you reward your internal teams by, you know, reaching goals and targets. It's going to happen anyway, and it takes tremendous time to change because these are unpopular changes. You know, it's not nice to take the easy buy for one, sell for two, make one profit system away and turn it into a system that needs to look way ahead. Um, it's not the question of will this become part of your brand or will this shape your business model or will this part of your language. You need to change it into how will this become part of our brand. And if you read this, you probably already think by yourself, wow, these kind of changes take a lot of time. Exactly. Because this has nothing to do even with the products. You need to start with these how first, and within those new constraints, you will start to build your business and do your sourcing. And it means that you will say bye-bye to certain products because the volume that you drive through the business cannot pay for what you need to achieve. It cannot be that the business model of yesterday can carry all the costs of the business model that you need to have in the future. That was the same 5 years ago and 10 years ago. So it will not be different from tomorrow. Abide that some of the legislative frameworks around this business are fundamentally different and forcing you to think different. Yeah. So it's not just a technical checkbox. It's about leadership. It's about moving ahead. Yeah. Some companies aren't waiting. I don't say everybody needs to make the initial transition into brand communication, but don't forget also on this you have early adapters and followers and laggers. And it's fine, but you need to make a conscious decision on what position you are. This is an example of some company like Patagonia who actually sets the rhythm and even had an advertisement saying, don't buy this jacket. Interesting marketing. What about DPP, Casper? Well, in general, if you have to share all kind of information and at the same time we want to reduce the amount of paper that we throw at consumers when they buy products, then it makes sense to have all this information digital. And we call it digital product passport. So what need to be in the digital product passport? Well, if I say to you that some of these acts are not finalized yet, then everybody knows that it's not clear. But the principle of the digital product passport is clear, and also the reasoning behind it. Without it, you won't be able to sell the product into the EU. Yeah? Because if consumers have the right to access information and the information needs to be there digitally after scanning a QR code or already available on a website, then information is part of the product, like a good manual is part of the product. So it has product identity information, it has legal information, it has compliance information. Last session on the toys actually showed that the digital product passport was even replacing the conformity declaration. Yeah, it makes sense. If you need to judge if a product complies with the essential requirements of applicable legislation before you import it, before you place it on the market, then why should you have a declaration of conformity that only covers part of all all the applicable legislation. The fact that you actually place it on the market means importing it is already the confirmation of the fact that you did all what you had to do. So I don't need to sign anything or ask you to sign anything. The management of the company, the brand, is, as manufacturer or quasi-manufacturer, is responsible for this. I don't need to confirm it extra with a piece of paper. It's already in the law. So you will see that this shift is there. Information about how to repair it, what content of the materials actually is already recycled, what is the carbon footprint, what is the material footprint. Look at all those data points. Yeah. And all accessible via the QR code. We have identified, I don't know, 1,000, 1,200 data points in general over the scope of what is covered in ProductIP entirely. Yeah. If you look at, for example, recycled content, like in France, how much rare earth is there, or how much precious metals are used in a printed circuit board of electronics, and how much of this gold and platinum is actually coming from recycled sources? Then you as a buyer think, how should I know? Well, actually, you should know in the future, but you cannot determine it from looking at a printed circuit board. The one that makes the parts, he already knows, and he needs to confirm to the next one, and then there need to be a line of trust. So this is two parts of a supply chain that need to grow together. You need to have the placeholders for collecting the data and sharing the data with the consumers, and the one that have the data need to have systems in place to share that data efficiently. Otherwise, the price goes up simply because people are entering data again and again and again. And they need to be trustworthy. So probably a lot of those components will also become like certified components. Same like with FSC or PFC. Is the tree coming from a sustainable forest? You really want to drive through that forest and check it all by yourself, or trust certified systems? For you at this end of the market, you need to look at, okay, this means we need to collect data, but we do business with a trader, so we need to identify who's the next tier behind the trader and probably the second tier after my factory. Yeah? Because if I don't have a digital product passport, I have no market access. So we used to talk about technical files. We will start talking about market access files, because it's not just compliance information per se on the product. It's also about repairability and reusability and recycle information. So the scope is much broader. There will be an IT system by the customs, the EU customs. We had a presentation by the EU ambassador in Hong Kong and Macau a couple of weeks ago in Hong Kong. And he told us that 97% of the effort of all the EU customs this moment is related to drop shipping. And they really have a tremendous focusing on making that more efficient, but also killing the non-compliant import route for drop shipping. So digital is the way in that sense, because the volumes are mind-boggling and you cannot do that manually. But what you can do is you can do it digitally and have smart software using that for risk-based. So are there certain product categories that are high risk? Are there certain buyers that are high risk? Are there certain makers or brands? Or are there some phony EU authorized representatives? So 2028, the new EU customs digital product passport data entry need to be mandatory for drop shippers. But if you look 10 years later, everybody that places products on the market, even EU manufacturers, are entering data into the system. That system is not the system that is used by consumers. It's only used by market surveillance, customs. Even if this project is delayed, you need to focus on the fact that there's a larger GS1 project running for European and US market, where they move to QR codes anyway in 2027. because the current EN code doesn't have enough digits and doesn't have the opportunity to link the consumer towards a page or web page or web-based information. So the transition anyway will happen. Yeah. So last time, I think it was toys, I introduced the method that we call PAPS, product, artwork, process, and supply chain. So what if you bring it always down to 4 areas, so you can actually overlay different kind of legislation. One of my colleagues says we need to change it into PAWS, and we focus on artwork, process, supply chain. PAWS, I make process into workflow, and then it becomes PAWS. Because PAWS is also docs, and docs are part of my legislation as well. So PAWS, product, artwork, workflow, supply chain. This would allow you also to transfer impact from different legislation to your colleagues and make it more accessible. So look at this, product, artwork, workflow, supply chain. What is the impact on this new legislation? Well, this is definitely influence on the product. For many products, it means probably redesign, because you need to be able to take them apart or separate certain parts, or maybe even make different decisions on raw materials used in order to be able to meet new durability targets. If it's that fundamental change, it also requires retesting. This will take time. Yeah. So audit, re-engineer, and schedule lab work is a following up action, or monitor that if you are on the buying side. Now, look at the eco-design products like the washing machines and the dishwashers, but also look at the apparel and at the furniture and mattresses. Artwork, it will require new labels, new QR codes, new icons, digital product passport integration. This will be a fundamental overhaul that you probably will do in the sense of making new templates and applying them on future orders. You still have time, but you need to consider this. And also, I'll come to that later. If you have always artwork and packaging coming from suppliers where you buy products, you're probably facing a problem that is too large because there's too many variations. So you really are better off if you would like to redesign the problem first. Can I minimize the variation on artwork? Can I move to templates? Can I minimize the variation in packagings anyway? Yeah. The points of sales digitally, online listings, are the tools that I use on the e-commerce side. Are they capable of dealing with all this kind of new information? Also relevant. And so it's just not product label, it's also e-commerce side. Workflow wise, I think that is probably the most fundamental change. Today, if you don't have a declaration of conformity and nobody's asking for it, you could even create one the moment somebody's asking for it. But if you look at what's happening in this legislation with digital product passport, where you need to have the information before you actually start to ship it, because you cannot fix it later. And you can also not fix later spare parts. So it is a change of, okay, we ship it and we fix it later, to, are we really ready for the coming XY years? Yes, okay, then we can ship it. And that means the release gates are changed as well. That's definitely a different workflow, which also means that specialists in the market around certain product categories, importers, will have specific roles, not just by carrying stock, but also carrying information, carrying spare parts. Yeah, it's different. Will this change the way retail is buying private label? Yeah, I'm completely convinced it will. They need to engage with different entities. It also means that the way you deal with suppliers, the supplier engagement need to be different. You cannot just change a supplier overnight just because something is $1 cheaper. Because the impact will be spare parts, information, release gates. Can they deal with it for the next 5 to 10 years? Yeah. And you cannot just say, okay, we do with a trading agent and they don't understand anything. Trading agents have a very good role in the market because they know what kind of product you want. They can do sourcing, they can prepare programs for you, but they also need to change the way they do business. And in many a case, you probably want to deal directly one-on-one with the manufacturer and also need to go into the second tier data, or what we call even single topics like the battery in the product or the charging cable with the product or the adapter that comes with the product. Yeah, because if the company is not making the adapter and not making the data cable, but just adding them from a second source, I can tell you where the problems are. Not just in the product he makes. It's always in those spare parts made by somebody else. Yeah. This takes a lot of time. I told you in the beginning, my sigh is really a sigh. This is massive overhaul of the way you do business. Uh, we need to have, we really need to rethink the way we do business in order to get those new results. So what can you do? I think 20-80 rule. What are the 20% of the products you're going to make 80% of the profit in the next year? Because that should be your main focus. You probably have too many suppliers, too many products to do it for all. Pick one or two and start to do an exercise, like a fire drill. What would happen if for these we really need to complete the whole process around circular economy? Don't jeopardize your current business. Run it as a project. Yeah. But assign an owner who's going to do this and try to see what comes out when you do this product. It takes incredible amount of effort and incredible amount of time. This gives you an idea of what you will need to do if you want to do it for all the products in your 20% or even beyond that. Yeah. So you really need, it's almost start a business in a business. Perhaps you open it on the other side of the street, like Steve Jobs when he came back to Apple. Find your own company with the new company. Don't waste time. You know, do not wait for the deadlines because you will need all those time that you've been given in the transition. If you still are a reactive company, then you're probably always too late and you need to become an active company. Yeah. If you still have the discussions at the coffee machine that compliance is a cost, then you really have no place in the future market in Europe. You cannot just see it as a cost. It needs to be efficient. Yes. Yeah, but you need to think about how are we going to add what we do as part of the brand. We also change, and in the original way of collaborating with suppliers in ProductIP, people opened a market access file and invited the supplier to upload information. At this moment, many of our large customers already fully engage in projects where actually the supplier is making a complete technical file for review and sharing, which is needed in order to make them proactive and easier to collaborate. Yeah, we help supply chains to be changed from not able to able, but you need to choose suppliers and ensure that they are willing. Yeah, suppliers that are active are future-proof. They are proactive. They create technical files for you to review, which is actually much more efficient, and it means that your job is getting with respect to the compliance information is going back to managing supplier performance, because you actually cannot manage a product. Yeah, you need to manage the supplier performance. You need to manage change. We are ready for that. We don't sell compliance. We empower you to build confidence, and one market access file at a time is enough of a base to deal with that. One more things. Yeah. So will this legislation actually exactly tell me how to change the product? Germans would say jein, yes, but not yet, or yes, not entirely. If you look at the scope, apparel, mattresses, furniture, tires. It makes sense that these are so different products that you write down as legislating office specific things around these things. So they call it delegated acts. So the delegated acts will become more specific. The way we deal with apparel would not be the same as the way we deal with tires. Different products, right? And if we need to have certain aspects that need to be tested or proven, then obviously we need standards. Yeah. So detailing out the goals will be in delegated acts, and the way to achieve it will come from standards. Some are already under development. They are all thrown in this funnel that we are reading. So will ProductIP be more expensive in the future? Maybe yes, because if we need to read more, then we need to follow up and change it into practical implementation for you. But if we have more users, then maybe we can, as software as a service, share all the burden to everybody that's using ProductIP. The rules that affect your product design are obviously on the way. You need to have clear guidelines, but the real work is workflow, rhythm, mindset. Yeah, that you need to start already. If you wait for full clarity, you'll be too late to shape your advantage. That's my slogan for you. How to stay on top of things, how to follow this. Just use ProductIP, because if you make files with products, you will see the change in those files. But again, we are not changing the way you brand your products. Okay. Stay on top and download the ProductIpedia app. Download the ProductIP app and get also access to ProductIpedia and updates of our platform. That would be great. Do we have a question? If you have a question, then you have to put it into the chat or the Q&A, because I have no time to talk on questions with people. Q&A. In the supply chain traceability, is supply chain traceability transparency part of DPP data points? Yeah, in some product areas it is. Absolutely, you know. Very simple. If you look at the EU deforestation free products, then you already need to know on the in which area the trees are coming from. If you look at the France legislation on apparel, you need to know where's the raw material coming from, where's the textile being made, and where's the apparel being made. So the general move is into traceability. Is ESPR and right to repair CE marking? No, but it's law. CE marking is not legislation. CE marking is just an extra confirmation layer of the responsible management to declare that they have done everything that they should have done. And if they don't declare it, it's fraud and forgery. If they declare it and it's wrong and they don't have any budget, it's fraud and forgery. It's have nothing to do with the legislation scope. Scope is much broader than what's covered by CE. When the DPP is enforced, is printed manual still required with the product? Oh, I doubt it. It will be transitional, but in general, look at machine directive. It doesn't make sense to at one side we want circular economy and less paper and still demand all kind of manuals. But warnings on a product definitely will be warnings on the product. And the quick user guide probably still was with the product. And in machines, there's already an exception for agricultural and forestry products, because it doesn't make sense to look at a manual when you're hanging in a tree or somewhere on a field. You just want to have a book, right? So it's a lot of change. Will repairability also apply to small appliances such as a hair straightener, for example? And what if it's tailored for trade and not retail use? Not excluding, but it's not clear yet. And professional use and consumer goods, it's a thin line, you know. The route to market, some products are ending up for professional use, but actually they are also used by consumers. That question is not clear yet, but the scope of all this legislation is not limited. Nobody's stopping you to make a circular hair straightener now. It's interesting, to make a circular hair straightener. That would be interesting. Nobody is stopping you for that. Can I take you, would you be so kind to join me for a quick Q&A in this Mentimeter as a closing part of this session? I would really appreciate it to get some feedback from you. So as I said in the beginning, this topic will be on the agenda, and probably parts of it will become visible in the requirement lists of products that people are making market access files for in ProductIP, because we monitor the transition, and when things become applicable, they will appear in those requirements lists when you update them for repeat orders. So the transition periods are also visible in the requirements list of ProductIP. Then you can make a decision, do I want to stick to the old one, or do I already want to transition to the new one? For me, if somebody is making washing machines, doesn't matter where, they are the specialists in making washing machines. They would be the ones that really start to focus on what is the impact on the way I make this washing machine and can repair it in the future. That's their interest. They want to earn a living on selling washing machines. But if you are importing and branding and selling washing machines, you need to be ready as an organization to deal with all the responsibilities in a couple of years ahead. And that is a fundamentally different situation. It's not just sign up for a WEEE electronic article recycling program and pay a part, pay some money. It doesn't, you cannot just pay your way out by not having spare parts. It's really organizing it. Spoke with a colleague this morning, and I know a lot of you, I know many of you dealing with this. And to be honest, I really cannot see more than half of you dealing with this in a proper way, simply because the business model is not mature on product compliance. So that's why I hope I'm wrong, So after this presentation, are you still with me, or are you saying, Casper, you are right, this is a nightmare, or this is really not sure where to start? Or yeah, I can imagine. Exhausting is not a bad word. It's like a marathon, and it's many of you are doing sprints. Confused. I think confused is also a correct word. So the framework is there and the clarity is not there. So the clarity, but the clarity is not there on product. That's my message. The clarity will come for product, and the ones that making product can deal with that. And the clarity is there for retail and trade in terms of what you probably need to do. And I think the challenge is to reimagine how you do it, given this context. Don't drag the product into the equation of how we are going to do the business. Yeah. Necessary is also a good word. Thank you for that. We are already doing this. Awesome. We should buy your products. So I guess for most of you, this should be yes, but I think I know a lot of you, you've signed up for this, and it's not applicable for everybody yet. But the market is changing, and you might considering moving into certain products. And again, nobody is stopping you to make products that fit into a circular economy, right? It's not forbidden to build a business around that. The not sure yet is also a good one. It's probably true as well. Yeah. Do you do you think that you is not you as a person, but you as a company are ready for dealing with this at this moment? And be honest, the ones that say yes, they probably have a very, very limited scope of products or actually are making them all by themselves. But given the showrooms that I know, most of the answer should be no. Because of the sheer volume, don't forget the rhythm needs to go up to batch based. Yeah. And the number of suppliers that you have and the numbers of people that deal with those suppliers are often also completely out of balance for this reality. But if you say yes, I applaud you for your confidence. If you say no, what do you think is the one blocker? Is it the guidance of the company? Is it tools, capacity, knowledge? Is it courage? Yeah, so it's I will share the Mentimeter results with you as well, okay? So you can make this available. I think this is also good. Responsible person willing to take action. So in many companies, naturally processes are organized in a certain way. And you will see that traditionally it worked very well. But in the new product compliance situation is more like a matrix organization. This is affecting different aspects of the company entirely. And and is there actually somebody responsible for overseeing that? And it's never ending, although you could say it's like a matrix organization, like a project organization. But you need to have somebody that is willing to and able to walk straight through the organization. In a discussion with one of my good friends that has a long history on product compliance, we said perhaps the best leader inside the company to deal with this is the marketing department. Because everything is connected to the claims that you make as brands and to ensure that what you are saying is not only true, but also the experience that the consumer has around those claims are actually contributing to brand value. So why not make the marketing department responsible for product compliance? That would be an interesting route. Okay, thank you for this honesty. Uh, I knew part of the answer because most likely the ones that are signing up are the ones that perhaps we know from using ProductIP. And perhaps these are not the ones that are the best to look at this. Uh, I'm asking you this because we are going to have Compliance Tuesday sessions in the second half of this year that step a little bit away from the actual compliance regulatory directive topics, but more on the way companies need to deal with it. So a little bit away from product, a little bit more to process, perhaps with different speakers as well. Impact of contracts, impact on brand value, impact on marketing and claims, different topics, different angles. So this confirms what we actually already believe, that we need to broaden the scope. Thanks for this. Good question. For those who say no, when was the last compliance Tuesday by Microsoft Excel? Well, no pun intended. For those considering, interesting. Perhaps for those that said yes, can you have a one-liner, one word for those considering using ProductIP? So, we are not perfect. We know it's work in progress always, but we do some things right. And it's tough to work in a confined structure that is called compliance. We didn't invent the structure, we automated it. But and it's really a lot of work to work and make progress on product compliance. It's really a lot of work. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think we can get more out of ProductIP than we do now. We use it only for one customer at the moment. You have to remember that when you structure your article number information in a file in ProductIP, you can actually private label it the moment you share it. So I can make a market access file for the Casper 123, and I can share it with my customer and make it Acme EBC or Acme 123. So I can link it and connect it to the article numbers of my customer when I share it, and the customer has a file for free, and he can make a declaration of conformity if he wants. He can add his and he has access to this information that you want to share with him. So it's an interesting way. He can actually share it. A factory can share it with an importer, or an importer can share it with a retailer. And there's only always one company that pays for it. That's the one that initially creates the technical file and does the requirement list. We even have an option that suppliers can actually complete the file based on a prepaid invite by the account holder. So we don't overcharge at all in that sense. All right. I didn't expect, but I still managed to do it in an hour. To all 150 plus, I think initially 180. Thank you very much for bearing with me in this complex world. It was a lot of text and a lot of slides with words on it, simply because these words were needed to explain certain things. Give us a little bit time to share this all and make it available with you. It probably will not be this week, probably will early next week. That has some organizational reasons at our side that we need to take care of. But it will come towards you and will be available. For now, thank you very much and have a great day. And good luck with working on product compliance. Thank you for your efforts. Bye bye.